going to take a deeper dive, and we'll be talking more about some of the different traditions and cultures that we do see in the different countries that are within the Asian American and Pacific Island communities. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit more about what Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month is and why it's so important to celebrate it. So Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, also commonly referred to as AAPI Heritage Month, is an annual celebration recognizing the historical and cultural contributions of individuals and groups of Asian and Pacific Islanders who are living in the United States. It was initially celebrated during the first 10 days of May and was at the time just called Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Week. But it was then later extended to last the entire month of May. And the reason why May was chosen as the month to celebrate AAPI Heritage is to commemorate two different significant dates. The first of which was May 7th, 1843, which is when many Japanese immigrants began arriving in the US for the first time. The second significant date is May 10th, 1869, which is when the Transcontinental Railroad was completed. And a majority of the workers who laid the tracks for the railroad were Chinese immigrants. So it was important to incorporate both of those dates. So initially the week lasted from May 1st through May 10th, but now it is the entire month of May. So in 2022, it kicks off on Sunday, May 1st and lasts through Tuesday, May 31st. And AAPI, so it references cultures from the entire Asian continent, so including East, Southeast, and South Asia, as well as the Pacific islands of Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. So as you can see here listed on the screen, we've broken down the individual islands that make up those three island groups. And so you can see just from this list here, there are many different countries, many different places where AAPI culture originates from. There are actually over, it consists of approximately 50 different ethnic groups in which there are almost 100 different languages spoken. So it is very vast. There are a lot of different unique and rich cultures, histories, traditions within all of these. And Malika and Cruz are both going to show us some really fantastic examples of this. But here at Mango, speaking specifically on the languages, we do offer a handful of different languages that are spoken within AAPI cultures. So you can see them listed here on the screen. We currently have Hawaiian, Japanese, Korean, Filipino. We have Chinese, both Cantonese and Mandarin, Tamil, Javanese, Hindi, Malay, Indonesian, Vietnamese, Malayalam, and Thai. In addition to these courses, for those who are interested in learning a little bit more about different AAPI languages, we also have a handful of different ESL courses for those who are looking to learn English. So we currently have ESL, again, for both Chinese, Mandarin, and Cantonese, Japanese for English learners, Korean, and Vietnamese as well. And for those of you who might be unfamiliar with our ESL courses, the best part about them is that they are all completely written and narrated in the native tongue of the speaker. So for example, here on the screen, we see a screenshot from our ESL Mandarin course, and you can see that it is completely written in the characters. So if you have patrons who are just starting out learning English, it's very easy for them to utilize Mango and make the most of it. So now we are going to do a little bit of a deeper dive, and I'm going to pass the mic on to Cruz so she can tell us a little bit more about a few different traditional dances across a few different cultures.
Thank you, Sabrina, for sharing with us some of the important facts about the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Hi, everyone. My name is Cruz, and today I'm going to talk about a few of the traditional dances that you might see during some of the celebrations for the AAPI Heritage Month. So Punmyo, the Punmyo dance, or also known as the farmer's dance, is rooted in the collective labor of farming culture in South Korea. And this dance was originally played as part of agricultural rituals, rural holidays, and village community events. And it was just a way for villagers to gather and relax after a hard day of labor. So as you can see here, their traditional clothing is very colorful. And then the advanced dancers sometimes wear hats called singmo, with long ribbons attached to them. So when the dancers spin and they flip, they can make intricate patterns by moving their heads. Drumming is also a central element of punmyo, and traditional folk music comes from instruments like the kingari, which is what you see here in the right. And it's a small handheld gong representing thunder. And then we also have the fu, which is a barrel drum representing the clouds, and that's the picture on the left. And then other instruments, other drums that they use is the chin, which is a large gong representing the wind. And then you might also find chanku, which is an hourglass-shaped drum representing the rain. So the fundamental philosophy of punmyo is to encourage, entertain, and unify communities, which is why the people of South Korea see punmyo as a symbol of unity. And due to the rich history and the importance of this traditional dance, punmyo was added to the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List. And this list, which is the Intangible Heritage, consists of non-physical intellectual wealth, such as folklore, costumes, beliefs, tradition, knowledge, and language that is considered by UNESCO to be part of a place's cultural heritage. And UNESCO created this intangible cultural heritage list to protect these traditions in the culture. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so in Thailand, we have two different classifications of dance. So they have the classical dances, which are the dances that can be traced back to more than 1,000 years ago. And also these dances were mainly performed at the royal courts. And they also have folk dances, which are the dances that came from the rural communities. And then these dances derive from the classical dances. So Kun is one of the best known classical dances, and this dance has a history of 400 years and is also part of the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List. Kun is still considered one of the most important performance arts forms in Thailand. And the dance was originally performed in the royal courts for the royal family, and it's typically performed by male dancers that are dressed as characters. And this includes men, women, demons, and monkeys. So as you can see here, dancers wear these beautiful and elaborated masks and clothing, and the dancers normally replicate battle scenes with very interactive and expressive movements, while a narrator normally tells the story. So most Kun performances are based on the tales of the Ramakien, which is the Thai version of the Indian Hindu Ramayana. The Ren dance, which means to dance in a circle, is one of the most popular form of folk dance in Thailand, but it's also a popular dance in other Southeast Asian countries such as Cambodia, Laos, and Malaysia. So these dances often tell the stories of daily lives of rural people. So like planting rice, harvesting crops, and also religious rituals. The dance incorporates slow and graceful hand movements and also simple footwork. And men and women can dance together in circular manners to the beat of a drum. So this is one of the most social forms of dance, and it's also part of traditional festivals, popular celebrations, and parties. And a fun fact about Renwoon is that the dance was patronized by their prime minister during the World War II. And the military encouraged Thai women and men to enjoy themselves by dancing Renwoon to help them forget about the hardships that their country was facing. So even government offices and government officials were given half a day during the work week to dance to Renwoon at their offices. And then in China, the lion dance is one of the most important traditions in China. And this dance is performed on big occasions such as the Spring Festival, which is their Chinese New Year. And in China, the lion symbolizes power, wisdom, and superiority. So people perform lion dances at Chinese festivals to bring the good fortune and to chase away the evil spirits. So the Chinese lion dance are performed by two dancers in a lion costume. So the performers become the body of the lion. So the person in front is the head and the front limb of the lion. And then the person behind is the back and the hind legs of the lion. So they also have two different types of lion dances. So we have the Northern Lion Dance, which has closer relations to Kung Fu, which is the Chinese martial arts. And then we have a Southern Lion Dance that is based on the study of lions' behavior with emphasis on actions like scratching, shaking of the body, and licking of the fur. The head of the lion is usually oversized and dragon-like, and it's made from paper mache. And there's also a mirror attached to the head of the lion because mirrors are believed to expel negative energy, evil, and bad spirits. So now we're moving to the Polynesian Islands. And the hula dance is the storytelling dance of the Hawaiian Islands. And the dance was developed by the Polynesians who settled in Hawaii. And the dance was originally performed for the goddess of fire. So the hula dance tells a story to the chant, while the hula dancers act out and emphasize parts of the story with choreographed hand movements and repetitive footwork. And traditional costumes are made of, they're made out of lace, which are the flower necklaces, and the pau skirts and ankle bracelets that were made of whalebone and dog teeth. And the art of hula is credited for preserving the culture of the native Hawaiians. And another popular dance that you are probably familiar with is the fire knife dance. And this dance is a traditional Samoan dance that was used in ancient times to prepare a warrior's mind for battle. And originally they used wooden swords and clubs that had boar's tusks and sharp teeth attached. And the dance involved the brave twirling of the knife, while the dancers were also doing other acrobatic stunts. However, with the introduction of the metal that came later, the wooden swords and clubs evolved into machetes that were wrapped in towels on both ends with a portion of the knife that was exposed. And it wasn't until 1946 that the fire was added to the dance by a Samoan American knife dancer with the name of Freddie Letuli. So now that I talked a little bit about some of the traditional dances that you might see during the AAPI Heritage Month, Malika is now going to introduce us to some of the traditional dishes and music that you might find.
Wonderful. Thanks, Cruz. So as Cruz just mentioned, I am going to dive into some music and food culture of the AAPI community. And first, we're going to take a look at the unique and diverse music of Polynesia. We just learned a little bit about some dances from those islands. And let's dive into the music a little bit. As Cruz mentioned, Polynesian Islands, it includes many islands in the South Pacific and really just has a long history of different influences on the countries for the sounds that we hear today. So music and dance are nearly inseparable in almost every culture, and that definitely includes Polynesian music. However, the music that we hear today and have for the last several hundred years does have an outside non-native influence on it. So the Polynesian Islands were colonized in the 1790s, and their Christian influence really changed the sound of the traditional music to what we've heard now for centuries. This influence of Christianity brought the element of hymns to the traditional music and is now a main component of Polynesian music overall. And while these hymns are beautiful, this change in power did drive a lot of the traditional sounds underground, with some of them being prohibited and just lost overall, which is truly a loss for those islands and mostly the native heritage of those islands. So next, I have a video to share with you, a little clip of some Polynesian music that we can listen to hear their unique and beautiful sounds. All right, so next I want to talk about something that has gotten really popular, and that is Korean popular music, also known as K-pop. So what is this craze K-pop and how did it come about? So very similar to here in the Americas, the pop idol scene grew tremendously in the 1990s in South Korea as well. And this is when we really started to see the use of the term K-pop, because prior to the popularity of the term K-pop, Korean popular music was called gayo. And just to give you an idea of how big this musical genre is, if you aren't already aware or seeing teens and young adults in your library looking for this music, as of 2019, K-pop is ranked at number 6 among the top 10 music markets worldwide, according to the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry. And this was from a global music report in 2019. And so while K-pop is just a general term to identify Korean popular music, the name has really taken on a more genre-specific term over the last 4 to 5 years. And I think a lot of that includes the popularity of a boy band named BTS that we see to the right over here. This was a cover of Time magazine from 2019, and I'm pretty sure they've only gotten even more popular since then. So now that we spoke a little bit about some music, let's dive into some food of the AAPI community. Okay, so first up we have poke, which is a traditional Hawaiian dish. The beginnings of poke started with fishermen actually just cutting off and seasoning parts of their catch for a snack. So think about being like out on the boat for a long day and you're hungry and you've got, you know, all these catches that you've just had. They would simply just like cut off a piece, throw some salt on it, and that would be a little snack for them. So the traditional way does include the bones and the skin of the fish, while most modern North American restaurants you're going to receive poke at, you're going to get a version that is deboned and skinned. I also think it's assumed that a lot of poke is tuna based, but actually poke can be various kinds of raw fish. And what's unique and different about it from any other raw fish dish is that it doesn't actually use citrus to cure the meat like some others do, including ceviche. And then just below that, we have a delicious dish from the Philippines. It's pancit, which is just noodles, or a word to describe a noodle dish in Filipino. This dish is an absolute favorite and staple throughout the country and amongst Filipino Americans. It's that kind of dish that really just changes a bit from home to home, but the main thing is always noodles, and typically chicken is your main source of meat, but it's also not uncommon for other meats to be used as well. All right, let's move on to a couple other foods. So at the top, we have a delicious Korean dish called bibimbap. It's a rice dish with biba meaning to mix rice, with bap meaning rice. So it's literally like a mixed rice dish of rice. It's often topped with kimchi, beef, a raw or fried egg, and a series of mixed vegetables. And just to highlight how popular this beloved dish is throughout the world, it was listed at number 40 on the world's 50 most delicious food readers poll that was compiled by CNN Travel. And then just below that, we have a personal favorite of mine, which is a Chinese scallion pancake. It's also known as kongyunbeng. It's also known as a green onion pancake. It's a very simple yet delicious dish. It's scallions and dough. There are a couple fun things about this scallion pancake. One is that many believe that this dish originated in Shanghai, where many current day Indians had once lived. And so they think there's a heavy influence on there with the Indian culture because it's very similar to naan bread. And then there's also a really fun Chinese legend that goes with the first pizza coming from the idea of a scallion pancake, and that it was taken back to Italy by Marco Polo. So if you've never had a scallion pancake, I highly recommend. You usually find them at traditional Chinese restaurants. Think of like a dim sum type of restaurant. So speaking of dim sum, I have some children's books to share with you that represent different Asian cuisine of different styles. And you might be wondering, why is this important? And it's because representation really matters. The three of us recently came back from PLA about a month ago, and we were all just so happy and impressed to see so many books, specifically children's books, that were dedicated to different cultures. Largely, we noticed a huge influx in AAPI content in literature and also Native American literature as well. So whether you have a child of a different culture or your children live in a community where the majority of people maybe don't look like them, this is a really great opportunity to highlight the diversity of your community and on a larger scale, just the world. So now that we've talked about some of the amazing and diverse culture of the AAPI community, I'm going to hand it back over to Sabrina, and she is going to share how you can help promote AAPI month within your library, as well as where you can catch us this summer at our next library conference. So over to you, Sabrina.
Awesome. Thank you, Malika. So yeah, we definitely have a lot of really great tools available for you to not only just promote Mango to your communities, but also specifically AAPI Heritage Month. So our marketing team has put together a lovely flyer that you can see posted here on the right of the screen, highlighting the AAPI languages that Mango does offer that you can either download or print out and post in the library to share with your community. So this flyer, as well as all of the marketing materials that we have available for you, can be found in the Mango Market. So for those of you who might not be familiar with the Mango Market, the best way to access it is to first log into the Mango admin portal, also known as the map. So to get to the map, you just go to libraries.mangolanguages.com. And once you log in there with your admin credentials, if you just click on the promote tab, it's going to take you directly into the Mango Market, where you can then check out all of the different materials we have. So we have a nice variety of downloadable PDFs, there are flyers. We also have a section that is dedicated to pre-sized assets for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we also have a nice variety of physical materials, things like new made-to-order t-shirts that we've just released. We've got tote bags, chapsticks, water bottles, all types of really great stuff that you can use your annual spending credit to obtain. And for those of you who might not be familiar with your annual spending credit or with how to get into the market, or if you're not sure what your credentials are, we will post a slide that has all of our contact information listed. So if you just reach out to your dedicated account manager, we'll be more than happy to help you get in there and make sure that you're able to access all of the materials that we have available for you. And Malika mentioned where to see us this summer. So we will be attending ALA Annual in DC, which we're really, really excited about. So if any of you will be joining as well, we will be there, and we'll have a lot of great giveaways at the booth. We'll have some of our marketing material, some of the swag that you can find in the market there. We're always happy to chat with you about promotional tips. We always love getting a chance to meet you all in person. And we will also be giving a series of short presentations. So there will be some on how, with a little bit more information about the Mango Market, tips for promotion, the materials that we have. We'll also be doing presentations on tips for community outreach, cross-promoting your resources within the library, as well as touching on some of our endangered and indigenous languages. So that pretty much takes us to the end of the webinar. We do have a few minutes left, so we will, of course, be sticking around to answer any questions that anyone has. But here you can see that we do have all of our contact information, as well as the specific states that we do work with. So if you have any questions about anything in general, if you're looking to chat about any tips for promoting AAPI Heritage Month or Mango in general, definitely reach out to us. We always love to hear from us. So yeah, again, we'll be sticking around for a few more minutes to answer any questions that anyone may have. We also have a few polls that we are posting at this time too. So the first one, just curious, if there are any libraries out there who are currently doing any promotions celebrating AAPI Heritage Month, and also to see if anyone does have any large AAPI populations within your community who could benefit from these courses. So we would love your feedback on those polls. And that's great. Just looking at the poll results that have come in so far, it looks like for both questions, about 3/4 of you have done some promotions and do have a large AAPI population in your community, and about 1/4 not. So hopefully this was helpful in terms of, shedding a light on why this Heritage Month is so important to celebrate, and some tips for sharing that with your communities.
So Vincent's wondering, he works at a library that doesn't have any AAPI employees. What would be a proper way to honor AAPI Heritage Month in an appropriate way? Great question. And I don't think that you have to have any personal representation on your staff in order to celebrate that. And in fact, I think it probably would make your community feel even more welcome, right? That knowing they don't see maybe somebody who looks like them in the library, but you guys are still acknowledging their culture and the important part of your community that they play. So if you guys have any potential connections or relationships with maybe someone within that AAPI community, they might be a wonderful person to coordinate with and come up with a potential event. But even just like what Sabrina shared today with that PDF poster that you can download from the Mango Market, like that, even just doing like a Facebook post and just acknowledging, throughout the month that not only is this celebrating AAPI culture and heritage, but there's a way for them to get involved with that through the library, right? So whether that's connecting to a native language that their family speaks, or it's somebody else looking to learn another language. There are a lot of really interesting facts and tutorials and things to share. So you could even do something like once a week, do a social post and highlight either maybe somebody famous from the AAPI community, or highlight some contributions that the community has made to America. You could talk about the growing community. I think about even just being like a kid, and like there was like never really sushi where I grew up. But now it's like almost everywhere, right? And like I think we see a larger influx in Asian cuisine in general. So hopefully that gives you some ideas, Vincent, of how you can highlight and honor AAPI Heritage Month within the library. And of course,
and I was just going to mention, I was going to add something a little bit to what Malika was saying. And she mentioned this before too. It's also a great opportunity even to just highlight the library resources that you might have available, right? The talks about our Asian history or Asian writers, or even like the kids books. So if you have any of those things in your library, even if you don't have a big community, it's also a way just to highlight those resources that you have available. So people that want to learn more about it, they get the opportunity. They might not even know that you have it at the library, but it's a great opportunity to highlight those resources. So books, cooking books, kids books, any writers, that come from the AAPI community. Or languages, like in this case, that's why we were highlighting those languages in case people want to immerse themselves more in the language and the culture as well.
So I just want to, again, thank you guys for joining us this morning. We really appreciate you coming to hang out with us and learn a little bit more about the unique and diverse culture of the AAPI community. And we hope that you guys highlight this wonderful community during the month of May in some way, shape, or form. Please reach out to your account manager if you do have any additional questions on how to do that, or where you could find materials to do that, or just anything you might be wondering overall. We're here to help.
Libraries are the backbone of their community, supporting and empowering ambitions far beyond their doors. As we grow ever more diverse, so does the need to connect in another language. Fulfill your patrons' thirst for knowledge with a digital resource available anytime, anywhere. Because when language is an adventure, how far will they go? Mango Languages for your library